Next we come to the I confess. The I confess is a very, very important prayer. Before we begin the Eucharist, we are asking God to help us to purify ourselves. It's very important that we come to the Eucharist totally purified. During the Eucharist, the priest constantly keeps praying for forgiveness and for purification. Even just a few seconds before the priest receives the body and blood of Christ, he asks for purification. So the I confess is nothing else but a different form of confession. During the I confess, all my sins are forgiven. Sorry, not all but the mortal sins. The mortal sins, I need to go to personal confession. Everything else is forgiven during this act when I make and I recite the I confess. This will be explained to you again in detail in a few minutes. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all. And with your spirit. To prepare ourselves to celebrate this Eucharist, let us call to mind our sinfulness. Why do we start the Eucharist with the I confess right at the start? Why do we start with the I confess? To beg pardon for our sins. So we need to ask for pardon before we begin the Mass. Very, very beautiful again. Now the penitential rite is a part of the introductory rite of the Mass and comes before the liturgy of the Word. Before you listen to the readings, you need to already have said the I confess. You need to purify yourself in order to listen to the readings. Otherwise, if your mind is not pure, you will not be able to interpret those readings in a proper way. It begins with an introduction by the priest, followed by an act of confession, penance by the people, and concluded by a general absolution. So the I confess, when we say the I confess, we are doing exactly the same things that we do when we go to confession. We first confess, we then say our penance, and we get an absolution from the priest. Now be very careful here. When you say the I confess, your venial sins are forgiven. Have you heard me clearly? All your venial sins are forgiven during that I confess, but not your mortal sins. Mortal sins, I have to go to confession. Many of us don't follow this. We go to confession out of rote sometimes, out of habit. During the I confess, my venial sins are forgiven, but not my mortal sins. Mortal sins, I have to go to confession and confess them. Very clear? There are different options in how we say this I confess. I normally like to always celebrate the Eucharist by saying the full I confess. Some people like to say, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy, and they stop with that. I say both. I confess here, and later on, the Lord have mercy also. So we are asking God for real, genuine forgiveness. Okay, so we are asking God for forgiveness. That's important. The act of penance is said when we strike our breast. Through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. That's the time we we are doing our penance. Now somebody may ask you, why do you do that gesture? Many people like to say, me. No, it's my penance. It's striking myself and saying, I am sorry. That's my penance. Clear? Good. The purpose of the penitential rite is to prepare us to celebrate the Mass by compelling us to call to mind our sins, by healing our wounds that divide us as a body and weaken our relationship with the Lord. So we are saying the I confess now together. When you go to confession, you go individually, not as a group. You go individually. Here at the Mass, we come as a group. And we are asking God as a group to pardon us of our sins. Very clear? So the convivial or the I confess is very important. It's asked for God's mercy. Then with a pure heart and fully united with God, we can go through the Eucharist, starting with the readings, the offertory, and finally we can receive the body and blood of Christ. So to receive the body and blood of Christ, I should have a clear conscience. I should have confessed all my sins. If you're in a state of mortal sin, you have to go to confession. If you're in venial sins or imperfections, the I confess helps me to somehow get rid or find penance and absolution for them. The priest in the end say, yes, I do absolve. Makes sense. This act of confession, penance and absolution, which takes place in the Mass, is deeply rooted in Scripture. John says in his first letter, we confess our sins to the Lord. He is faithful and just, and will forgive our sins and cleanse us from all of our unrighteousness. St. James asks us to confess our sins to one another. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. His letter, James's letter, chapter 5, verse 16. So we have been told very clearly by two of the apostles that we need to first confess our sins. I come to Mass only when I have a pure conscience. Anyone wants to ask anything? No? All right. These two verses that we have just heard are the scriptural foundation for the I confess. In the I confess, what we say? I confess to Almighty God, taken from one letter, and to you, my brothers and sisters, taken from the other letter. So these two are combined to begin the I confess. For you and I to realize that the I confess is not just a prayer that has been composed at random. No. It is very much based on Scripture. It has got a very solid foundation. St. Paul says, let a man examine himself, and so eat of the bread and drink of the cup. First letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 28. You need to be fully prepared to receive the Eucharist. Very clear. 3 letters now tell us we need to be well prepared before we receive Holy Communion. But a Christian text from the 2nd century, from a thing that's called Didache, that means the teaching of the apostles, instruct us as follows. assemble on the Lord's Day and break bread and offer the Eucharist, but first make confession of your faults, so that your sacrifice may be a pure one. I've spoken for some time to you now at length, but there's only one thing I've said to you. What is that one thing I have said? All the things that I mentioned to you stress on just one point. What is that? Very good. She said we need to confess our mortal sins, etc., before we come for the Eucharist. Very, very beautiful. I need to have got all my sins forgiven. Right? Only then can I come to the Eucharist. How many times during the Mass we are asking God to forgive us or purify us? How many times do you think, more or less? More or less, how many times do you think we ask for forgiveness? Don't tell me 70 times 7, no, that's too many. Nearly 20 times, nearly. Every time we are saying to God, sorry, forgive me. Why? Because it's important. And to conclude, just before we begin communion, the priest says a prayer which we don't hear because it's said silently, and also there's something or the other happening at that time. He tells us not to receive communion if you are in the state of mortal sin. We know that from our catechism. But the prayer the priest says here, by receiving the body and blood of Christ, may I not be condemned. May the receiving of your body and blood not lead me to condemnation. So if you're in a state of mortal sin, don't receive Holy Communion. What happens if you receive Holy Communion? If you're in a state of mortal sin and you receive Holy Communion, what happens? You commit one more mortal sin. It's never taught to us in catechism. In the state of mortal sin, if I receive communion, I commit one more mortal sin. So you see how important it is for us not to receive communion when I'm in the state of mortal sin. The I confess right at the beginning of Mass. The priest does not even go up. He comes back down here actually to say the I confess, because I'm not worthy to go up to the altar. I have to first purify myself and then go up. See, James again tells us that. You find it in the Acts of the Apostles. When you come to church for Mass, if you find you've got something which is not confessed, please go back. Leave the church. Go, confess your thing, or get reconciled to the person, and then come back with your gift to the altar. Now you see how important the I confess is. When you go to church, what happens? The priest starts in the Father, the Lord Jesus Christ. I confess, or I confess, finished. It's over. We don't see the importance of that I confess. It's a very, very important prayer. I'm cleansing myself in order to be able to receive the body and blood of Christ.